All right, so welcome to another episode of my Leveraging Your Voice podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, as always. Why don't you just take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Lori Michele Leavitt. I'm also known as the Pivot Catalyst.
Awesome. Now, Laura, you and I were talking a little bit, and I'm excited to share with our audience all the wonderful things that you do. Just so that I do this right, I am Paul, Coach Paul with PR Vocal Coaching, and this podcast I created to bring other professionals and entrepreneurs on so that they could leverage their voice and share it with my audience, their audience, and out on social media and all those different things. As always, I thank you for coming. Appreciate it. And just a reminder, when you're watching this, it's free to click that little like button. It doesn't cost a penny. So if you would, if you're watching this and you're liking it, click that little like button. We'd appreciate it very much. So thank you for that. Lori, let's get into your story. So you have a wonderful business. And what's the name of it again? Pivot?
So my business is actually, I have an enterprise called Abridge Corp. I've been running that since the end of 2000. And under Abridge Corp, there are several business lines slash brands.
Okay.
They're all aimed at the same thing, helping leaders pivot, increasing that leadership ripple. Very key as alignment and momentum. This is
So,
what I do.
so that's great. And I had that word pivot in my head. And it's one of my favorite words because we all have to be able to pivot on a dime anytime, anywhere to make adjustments to everything that's happening in the world. Now, one of the things that you talk about when you say pivot is also this concept of the ripple. So, talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that.
So, two things. One is the decision to pivot is quick, but usually the awareness that you need to pivot is not quick. And oftentimes it's best if you can include others so that they can tell you when a pivot is needed, because it may not come from you. And after that decision is made, actually experiencing that significant change is also rarely super quick.
Yeah.
Exceptions are during the pandemic, but we rarely have that level of energy. So I work with that level of urgency. So I work with leaders to, how do you accomplish this when that urgency, it's urgent to you, but it's not necessarily seen as urgent to everybody else. So how do you make that happen? With the leadership ripple, I mean, you have to be a very strong, effective leader in order to accomplish this. So this is a key part of following my purpose, is also improving that and helping with that leadership ripple. And what it is it's finding those leaders who are good leaders that truly are still, well, because they're good leaders, they're really still growing and improving themselves. They're learning. They want two things. They want a group around them that are advisors, peer level advisors, meaning they have the capability to help support decisions, and they have no other agenda other than to help each other. And through this, they can expand, grow those other leaders. And as a leader, you are able to then affect that change through many people. And that's what that ripple is. Just consider a ripple of water.
I like it. Now, leaders in what size companies? What sort of companies do you work with? Are they new startups? Are they small one-person solopreneur shops? What kind of organizations do you best work with or that you do you aim for?
Well, one, we work with all, but in different ways. So one, you and I talked about the leadership groups that I run. For those leadership groups, my aim, because it's decision support, is to get the most diverse group. Again, they're all business leaders, so they're not diverse in that aspect, but it will include entrepreneurs and those that have been doing this for a really long time, young and old, different genders, different geographies, etc.
Hmm.
And so there, yes, with entrepreneurs, typically when I'm consulting, like on a consulting engagement, It's with a larger organization because those are the ones that are having such trouble affecting change, not pushing, but actually having everyone be um, inspired by the change that is needed.
Leadership in these larger companies, which is where you're going to take your consulting into, leadership to me is one of the biggest problems that we have in larger organizations. And when I say that, I mean a lack of leadership and a lack of continuous learning in leadership and a lack of leaders being willing to learn all the new things and let the future emerge and sort of ride along with it and learn along with it. How do you, now, not all leaders are bad leaders, but there's a lot of struggle in the leadership. And there's all kinds of training for leaders for that very reason. So I'm not making a startling statement. But when you go into an organization who's a prospect and they're interested in maybe working with you, how do you determine whether these people are people who you might work well with, or people that are the kind of people that you want to work with?
I mentioned this with respect to the group, not the consulting, but they really do go together. Who do I work with? And I look for, other than being in a business leader position, a decision maker position, I look for three characteristics. One, I look for courage, and that includes the courage to be vulnerable. And in this case, if it's consulting engagement, that vulnerability needs to happen one-to-one. They need to be able to tell me what's really going on with them. And that's when we could create, what will really work best for them as they lead the organization, and help them with the communication of how they can communicate with others if they've been acting, behaving, showing up this way for so long. How can they start showing up differently and be trusted in doing so?
Now, that courage, we're going to get to the other two. That courage is a big one because leaders are asked to demonstrate to their followers that they know what they're doing. And so there is that challenge for a leader to be vulnerable to lead change. So what's your thoughts on that concept? And certainly one-on-one with you, they have to be that. How do they do that with the folks that they're leading as well?
Well, as you probably know, many times what goes wrong in an organization is communication, and many things that go wrong with communication are misunderstandings. So what you've just stated, I think, is a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding of what people truly view as courage or as knowing. Though we want to know the leader knows where they're going. And we want to know that they have the courage and the discipline to get there, and that they'll notice if we're on track or off track. We are not expecting the leader to know how to do the details. In fact, we are going to prefer if we have empowerment, responsibility, control, a say, a voice about how to reach that.
That's a really good point. In the old days, when we were more in a mechanical world, a leader could know more than everyone else. They could know how to do pretty much every job better than everyone else. In today's world, which is really, we've moved out of linearity and into this complexity, leaders can't really know more than everybody else about every job that's going on. So you really hit on something important there. Do you find leaders acknowledging and accepting that and realizing that and dealing with it, or do you find them still struggling with that concept?
Well, it oftentimes is hard to move out of the expert role, and that the how, I know best, I've done this before. It takes a very strong leader to know that, hey, if they did it, maybe it would be 90% great. If someone else did it, it'd be 70, and that their role is just to get them from 70 to 80. And maybe they won't be at 100%, but that's how you build others. That's difficult to do because you just want to get it done. Can you know everything? Perhaps, but then you're dropping the ball on being able to define what success looks like and defining what progress will look like if you spend all your time in the to-do part. You're going to miss the big picture. That's what you're needed for, is the big picture.
I love it. And all that's part of, I don't want to misstate, but it's all part of courage for that leader to recognize those things and have the courage to stay where they belong and create the picture that they're supposed to create. Is that?
It actually takes all three characteristics, but yes, courage is a big part of it.
Let's go to the
Another
next
one that
one.
it takes is curiosity. And
Excellent.
curiosity is, I define it as you know a lot, but you're not a know-it-all. And one of the examples I give in my first book, The Pivot, Extraordinary Business Momentum, is Captain Marquet of the USS Enterprise naval fleet, who was the type of leader who was the expert. And so he learned everything about the submarine, the ship, that he thought he was going to go in and lead so that he could tell them what to do. And how often do we do this, right? Then he was told, no, you're going to go to the Santa Fe. You're not going to the Enterprise. You're going to the Santa Fe. He knew nothing about that ship. And so he was forced to ask questions. And not ask questions in that thought of, I'm going to ask questions to see if they know what I know. But I'm going to ask questions because I really don't know. And I need to learn. If we as leaders who were experts in that can put ourselves into that position, the entire team grows.
Yeah, that's a great one. Curiosity, that's a good story too. I think there's a book connected to that story too, is there not?
Yes, turn this ship around.
All right, excellent. I thought that was a great book.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity is a great thing, and part of curiosity is learning to ask better questions, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm a good example of this. So I shifted. So I live in a relatively small community. And there was a point, my daughter is out of the house, had been out of the house for quite some time. I'm thinking, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this idea that, and all of a sudden an opportunity came to me to do something with business leaders. And that was that catalyst for me to say, all right, well, this is my opportunity. And I'm not naturally someone who just goes out and asks for coffee meetings. So this was a girl transition for me. And so I met with the leaders and I went, wow, I really do feel connected in this. And it caused me to shift from being the consultant, that person at the table that is supposed to know it all, and everybody turns to you for the answer, to the person who is there to affect change through others and to learn to ask more questions. And I say learn because I'm still learning. I still love to give solutions or jump in too quickly. But asking questions is hugely powerful.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the things that's most important for leaders in this knowledge age and with knowledge workers is to figure out how to ask better and better questions. Sometimes even the right question. We don't always get the right question, but we can ask better and better questions. And that changes the conversations we're having with people. And I also, you had just said this, asking better questions is a part of courage too, because it's challenging to stop telling and start inquiring about what people think. And how do
Mm-hmm.
you help people do that? How do you help people make that change? We're
Yeah,
still
and
curiosity.
I think it's one of the things that makes me a great coach because I've been through all the stumbles. I don't even know if I could possibly go through any more stumbles, although I probably will.
Be careful.
Is
You'll bring a new one on.
I'll
Oh
probably have a new one tomorrow.
my.
Um, is to anytime, I mean, the first step would be that anytime if you're going into a session where you're wanting to actually have a conversation, first, are you in the right mindset? Are you open to learning? Are you open-minded? So first, get in the right mindset. If you are, then every time that you think about an answer, just form it into a question. I mean, it's a start. It's not perfect, but it is a start.
That's a great answer. That's a great concept of, can you take your statements and turn them into questions? You just have an exercise book on that.
Yeah.
So that's a great concept. So that's courage and curiosity. What's the third of the three concepts?
So the third is something I just love to be around people like this, but it is required of a business leader, and that is tenacity. Do you have what it takes to continue moving toward the worthy goal? And that's key. Is it still worthy? Because things do change. But if it's still a worthy goal, then you need to have what it takes to get through the ridiculously hard stuff. And it will be ridiculously hard. But how can you lead? If you're not willing to get through it, how can you bring others with you?
Now, you and I both are a part of some different coaching groups, and one of them, Dave, he talks about the non-negotiables and the negotiables and stuff like that. And I've learned for myself, the things that I really want to do that really mean something to me, I now, because of that, categorize them in that way, and it sort of
Mhm.
makes me do them just in my own head. I say, oh, that's a non-negotiable. I'm going to go do that because I have to. Well, nobody told me I had to. It's just me.
Mhm.
But that's part of that tenacity. What kind of frameworks do we teach people to help them find that tenacity? Do you have anything in your program that you work with people on?
Yeah, and how do you as leaders inspire others so that they feel that? So this is the last piece, and that is that one, you can't inspire others unless you're first inspired. So, you know, you be inspired. You know, if you're working on your vision or your strategy, you know, how does it feel to you? Is it a huge yes exclamation point? And if it is, that's a purposeful pull. Now, how can you communicate with others and that so that they can actually get to that level? A command is not going to get them there. Telling them what to do in detail is not going to get them to inspiration. So it's not about motivation, it's inspiration. If we just are seeking to get better at that, we'll get better at so many different things. So part
Great.
of the lesson is just to be working with people and with how they communicate, how they get clear and how they be clear, which is my second book, Pivot to Clarity. It's, you know, how is that communication serving you and the others?
I heard a leader the other day talking to their team about Q1, and they made a simple statement. Hey, I'm happy with our progress in Q1. And then he said, and I'd like each of you to sit down and determine if you think you could have done more. And if so, how you could have done more.
Hmm.
And then do that in Q2. Well, I thought that was pretty good.
It is, as long as they understand what more is.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's in a context of more means longer hours or more
Mm-mm.
means that's not going to last very long.
No, more outcomes that are aligned with the team, with the organization's objectives. You bet.
Hmm. Good.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you mentioned two books. The first one was
Uh, the Pivot,
The Pivot, where you talk.
Orchestrating Extraordinary Business Momentum.
Is that where you talk through the six
The
pillars?
Yes, the 6 aligned momentum key indicators when a
Awesome.
business is in the state. So as I was writing this book, one, I cannot write a business book that has some learning and instruction, so it's both, for leaders without giving them a clearer idea of what progress looks like. There are
Mhm.
so many business books out there that give a concept and they're interesting. They're It's very difficult to put them into practice.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to make it somewhat at the end prescriptive. And in order to get that progress, I said, so what am I seeing in these organizations that make these extraordinary leaps, performance breakthroughs, whatever you want to call them. What's happening there that is allowing that is creating the space for that?
So 6
And I
forms
found that
of
it's called
measurables.
something I call aligned momentum. And then I identified 6. It just ended up as 6. I didn't purposely want 6, but I identified 6, that 3 of which, if you have those in place, identify that you're ready for more brilliant execution. And 3 that identify if you're ready for a more brilliant future. So some are more execution and some are more future thinking.
Yeah, that's very cool. Did those, would we think of those in some way as measurables, ways to measure your progress?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, your second book doesn't dive into any one of those individually.
It does.
Oh, I want to talk
Clarity.
about the next one. So what's that second book?
So the second book is called Pivot to Clarity. And clarity is one of the aligned momentum key indicators. And it was the one that I felt was not only most important in general, it was very much the most important at the time. I wrote most of that book during the pandemic when none of us felt very clear about anything.
Okay, I like it. So that's one of the 6. And now you have another book coming out, right? What's that going to be on? Is that going to be
Yes.
on
So
another of the 6?
I'm actually still noodling on which one that would be. I was
Okay.
thinking that it'd be the one on talent adaptability, which answers 2 questions. One, how as leaders do we even have an idea of what we're going to need in the future with respect to talent? And then if we do have this vision, some direction that we're headed, how do we inspire others to make the changes needed so that they can become that talent, neither of which are easy. I'm not sure if that's going to be the next one. May end up being an 8th instead of one of the 7, in that it may be a rewrite of the first book with a workbook.
Okay.
Haven't decided.
Now you said 8 of 7, but you had 6 measurables.
Well, so I have the first book and 6 measurables, which is 7 books.
Oh,
And if I
see.
write a workbook, it would be 8.
I see. Perfect. Perfect. All right. I love it. Excellent. Well,
Says the person who's written 4.
well, yeah. But I'm writing my next one. So it's going to be on my vocal coaching. It's called, I appreciate you bringing it up, Sound of Impact. That's the name of it, Sound of Impact. And there's another part of the name, but I'd have to look it up because I didn't memorize it. That's the thing for me, is not memorizing even my book titles. I know the first part always. I think it's Sounds of Impact, how to speak with confidence, authenticity, and purpose. That's the name of the book. See, if I took long enough stumbling through my words there, I figured I would remember it. So I did. Look at that. So, all right. So if I'm a leader and I'm interested either in joining one of your leadership groups that you're expanding beyond the local into more, I'm assuming it's going to be a little more virtual then.
It's global, it's virtual, because right now I'm launching the first of those global groups, and it includes people from Germany, a person who lives in both Africa and California, a few people from the US, someone from Brazil. So yes, we're all over. It's really only, forming one group is just constrained by the timing of the meeting.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So if somebody is a leader and wants to either join that or talk to you more about your consulting work, where would they come to find out more about you?
So I have many sites for the different brands and business lines that I run. There's one site under my name, Lori Michele Leavitt, or you can go to thepivotcatalyst.com. It goes to the same place, and that you can find everything there.
I love it. I really like the naming, the Pivot Catalyst. I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
I do. All right. So they go there, they'll find you, and from there they can get a hold of you. They can navigate to your books and everything else.
And LinkedIn is always a great place to connect. So
That's
just
where we
reach out to me
connected.
on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you'll put in the show notes my full name or even my LinkedIn link.
I'm going to put in thepivotcatalyst.com and your LinkedIn uh,
Okay.
URL, whatever it is, the
Mhm.
link for that. You bet. You bet. All right. Very good. All right. I always sort of end by asking this question. And every time I'm going to ask it, I think to myself, I should have warned this person I was going to end with this question, but I never, ever do. So I almost think I don't want to warn people. And
That's
I
all
just
right.
think maybe I should have. But all right. So, what's a thought, a idea, whatever it might be that you want to leave people with at the end of this episode?
Well, um, if people who are watching this are those that are growing smaller, but actually any size business, I think that what's really important is to be pulled by purpose. It gets you through. When I mentioned tenacity, when I mentioned leadership setting direction, truly knowing the purpose that you have will do wonders for you.
Awesome. Great thought. Great thought. Lori, I appreciate you joining us today. I really do. You've done a wonderful job sharing what you do, and I appreciate it. And our audience, I'm sure, will as well. And folks, thank you for joining. I always am grateful that you would come and watch an episode or two on my YouTube page. You'll see all the other episodes. You can scan through there, watch interesting ones to you. To me, they're all interesting, but whatever suits your fancy is there for you. Again, I'm Coach Paul with PR Vocal Coaching. You can go to my website at prvocalcoaching.com. Got a lot of information there. And if you want to set up a call with me, just click the button in the top right-hand corner, Discovery Call, and you can set up a call and we can chat there. All right. Beyond that, Lori, thank you again for coming.
Thank you. It was fun.
Appreciate that. Folks, thanks for watching. And until next time, bye for now.